Hello, and thank you for being here at Infidelity Tales Lab. Your presence makes sharing these stories worthwhile. Tell us, where are you tuning in from today? Big city? Small town? Share with us in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Seeds of Discontent. Ethan Hayes gripped his steering wheel, knuckles white against the black leather as he navigated through the winding roads of the Hamptons. The Mercedes purred beneath him, a stark contrast to the rusty pickup truck he'd driven in his youth back in Montana. That felt like a lifetime ago, before Innovate Solutions, before the success, before Isabella. The memories of his childhood in that forgotten Montana town surfaced unbidden. His father's weathered hands working multiple jobs, his mother's tired smile as she counted pennies at the kitchen table. They taught him the value of hard work, of never accepting limitations. He'd carried those lessons through college, through the countless sleepless nights building his company from scratch, through each painful setback and hard-won victory. Now, at 35, Ethan had transformed himself into something his parents could never have imagined. Innovate Solutions had become a powerhouse in the tech industry, his name mentioned in the same breath as other tech titans. He'd earned his place at the table, fought for every inch of ground he'd gained. The invitation to his in-laws' annual summer dinner sat on the passenger seat, the cream-colored paper a reminder of the world he'd married into. Isabella, Izzy, as she preferred, had brought color and warmth into his disciplined life when they'd met at that tech conference 5 years ago. He remembered her standing at the podium, her dark hair falling in waves around her shoulders as she discussed market trends with an enthusiasm that matched his own. "Your presentation was fascinating," she'd said afterward, approaching him with a confidence that commanded attention. "Though I think your projections for AI integration might be a bit conservative." He'd been intrigued by her insight, challenged by her perspective. Their courtship had been a whirlwind of intellectual discussions, shared dreams, and passionate nights. She'd understood his drive, or so he'd thought. The changes had been subtle at first. A missed dinner here, a canceled weekend there. Her enthusiasm for their joint projects at Innovate Solutions had waned, replaced by an increasing fixation on social events and gatherings that Ethan found mind-numbingly superficial. Last month's incident still gnawed at him. He planned a weekend at their cabin in the Catskills, their special place where they'd spent their honeymoon. He'd arranged for her favorite wines to be delivered, hired a private chef to prepare her preferred Italian dishes. "I'm so sorry, darling," she'd said, her voice carrying a note he couldn't quite place. "There's an emergency with the Thompson account." Rain check. He later discovered there was no Thompson account. The gates of the Stone family estate loomed before him, ornate and imposing. Richard and Carol Stone's mansion was a testament to old money and carefully cultivated connections. As he pulled up the circular driveway, a valet appeared, ready to take his keys. "Mr. Hayes," Carol Stone's voice carried across the manicured lawn as he approached the entrance. She air-kissed his cheeks, her designer perfume overwhelming. "We missed you at the charity gala last week. Izzy said you were caught up with work, as usual." The slight emphasis on "as usual" didn't escape him. Carol had never approved of his work ethic, viewing it as beneath their social standing. "The Morrison deal needed my attention," he replied smoothly, following her into the house. The interior reeked of wealth, not the earned kind, but the inherited variety that bred complacency. Richard Stone stood by the bar, holding court with several other guests. "Ah, Ethan, I was just discussing your company's latest quarter results with James here. Have you considered diversifying your portfolio? I know several excellent investment managers." "Thank you, Richard, but I prefer handling my investments personally." Ethan accepted a glass of wine, noting Richard's slight frown of disapproval. The evening dragged on, a parade of subtle digs and backhanded compliments. Ethan maintained his composure, years of business negotiations serving him well. These people, with their inherited wealth and social pretensions, could never understand what it meant to build something from nothing. He excused himself to step outside, needing a moment of respite from the suffocating atmosphere. The phone in his pocket vibrated, Izzy's name lighting up the screen. She was supposed to be at a yoga retreat in upstate New York, finding her center or whatever excuse she'd given this time. "Hey, Izzy, everything all right?" Her laugh crackled through the speaker, sharp and unfamiliar. "Oh, Ethan, darling, everything is more than all right. I'm divorcing you." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's grip on his phone tightened, but his voice remained steady. "Is that so? Don't act so surprised. You must have seen this coming." "Oh, and I've sold my shares of your precious Innovate Solutions. I needed some seed money to start over with Jake. He gets me in ways you never could, you boring workaholic." Jake. The name registered dimly in his mind, a venture capitalist who'd been hovering around their social circle lately. Ethan had dismissed him as another trust fund parasite. "Good for you, Izzy." His voice was ice-controlled and deadly. He ended the call, slipping the phone back into his pocket with deliberate care. Inside, Carol was approaching with another guest in tow, ready to inflict more social niceties. Ethan's mind was already racing, calculating moves and counter-moves. Izzy had made her play, thinking him weak, thinking him blind. She would learn how wrong she was. He made his excuses, citing an early meeting. As he drove away from the Stone estate, his face betrayed nothing of the storm brewing within. Izzy had struck the first blow, but she'd forgotten something crucial about him. He hadn't clawed his way up from nothing by being soft. The city skyline appeared in the distance, a jungle of steel and glass where he'd made his fortune. Somewhere in that maze of buildings, Izzy was celebrating what she thought was her victory. She'd chosen her battlefield poorly. This wasn't just about their marriage anymore. She'd attacked his company, the empire he'd built with his own hands. That made it war. And Ethan Hayes had never lost a war. Chapter 2. The Architect Emerges. Marcus Chen's apartment in Tribeca was lit only by the glow of multiple computer screens when Ethan arrived. Unlike Ethan's minimalist penthouse, Marcus's space was organized chaos. Walls covered in whiteboards filled with calculations, shelves overflowing with technical manuals and sci-fi novels. "You look like hell," Marcus said, opening the door. His rumpled appearance and the coffee cup in his hand suggested he'd been coding again, losing track of time as he often did. "We have a situation." Ethan moved past him, straight to the main workspace where they'd planned many of Innovate Solutions' key strategies. Marcus followed, concern etching lines around his eyes. They'd been friends since their freshman year at MIT, when Marcus had found Ethan in the computer lab at 3 a.m., debugging code for their robotics project. While Ethan had been all focused intensity, Marcus brought a natural charisma that made people want to follow their lead. "What's happened?" Marcus cleared space on his cluttered desk, pushing aside takeout containers and energy drink cans. Ethan laid out the events of the evening in precise detail, his voice never wavering. When he finished, Marcus swore violently in Mandarin, a habit from his childhood in Singapore that emerged when he was truly angry. "That manipulative witch," he growled, running his hands through his already disheveled hair. "She's been planning this, hasn't she? All those social events, the networking parties, she was setting this up. The question is, who bought the shares?" Ethan pulled out his laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. "She wouldn't sell to just anyone. She wants to hurt me, which means the buyer is someone who'd use their position against us." Marcus was already at his own computer, diving into financial records. "I'll start tracking the transaction history. Even with offshore accounts, there's always a trail." They worked in focused silence for hours, following digital breadcrumbs through a maze of shell corporations and hidden transactions. Dawn was breaking when Marcus suddenly straightened. "Got something." The shares were routed through a shell company in the Caymans, Green Horizon Investments. "They're good, but not good enough to hide everything." Ethan moved to look over his shoulder at the screen. "Who's behind it?" "Still working on that, but look at the timing of these transfers. They started 3 months ago, small amounts at first, then larger ones coinciding with Izzy's yoga retreats. She's been liquidating assets gradually," Ethan noted, his jaw tightening. "Planning her exit strategy." Marcus turned in his chair, his expression grim. "What's our play here? We need someone who can navigate the legal gray areas. Someone who isn't afraid to get their hands dirty." Ethan pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts until he found the number he needed. Amelia Reyes answered on the second ring, her voice sharp despite the early hour. "Ethan Hayes. This must be important for you to call at dawn." I need your services, Amelia. It's time to cash in that favor you owe me. A pause, then a low chuckle. The case in Singapore? I wondered when you'd collect on that. Give me an hour. I'll meet you at your office. Ethan ended the call, turning to find Marcus watching him with raised eyebrows. Amelia Reyes? The same lawyer who got that tech giant CEO off on corporate espionage charges. The very same. She's expensive and ruthless, but she gets results. Marcus nodded slowly. You're not just going to fight back, are you? You're going to destroy them. They came after my company, Marcus. Nobody does that, and walks away unscathed. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ethan and Marcus moved their operation to Innovate Solutions headquarters, converting a conference room into their war room. When Amelia arrived, she brought with her a team of paralegals and financial investigators. First things first, she said, spreading documents across the table. Your prenuptial agreement. Izzy's lawyers will try to challenge it, but I found some interesting clauses about company shares that she clearly didn't read carefully. Ethan leaned forward, studying the legal jargon. The first right of refusal clause? Amelia's smile was predatory. Exactly. Any sale of company shares must be offered to you first at market price. She's violated that provision, which gives us leverage. What about Jake? Marcus asked, pulling up the venture capitalist profile on his tablet. He's been involved in several failed startups, but always manages to come out ahead somehow. Dig deeper, Ethan instructed. Everyone has skeletons. Find his. They worked through the day, piecing together a strategy. Ethan remained at the center, directing their efforts. Each piece of information they uncovered revealed more of Izzy's betrayal. Meetings with competitors, leaked company information, carefully orchestrated social connections. She's been systematic about this, Marcus observed, reviewing a timeline they'd constructed. Using her position as your wife to gather intelligence, making connections with potential buyers. She thought I was too focused on work to notice, Ethan replied, his voice hard. Too trusting to suspect my own wife. Amelia looked up from her legal papers. We can use that against her. Play into her perception of you as the workaholic husband. Make her think she's winning while we prepare our counterattack. What's our timeline? Marcus asked. Ethan stood, moving to the whiteboard where they'd mapped out their plan. We move in phases. First, we secure the company, review all access points, change security protocols, identify any vulnerabilities Izzy might have created. I'll handle that, Marcus nodded, already typing notes. Second, we track down the real buyer of those shares and prepare our legal challenge. Amelia, that's your domain? The lawyer made a note in her ever-present legal pad. I'll have my team working round the clock. And third, Ethan continued, his expression darkening. We gather everything we can on Jake. His business dealings, his personal life, his weaknesses. I want to know everything. What about Izzy's family? Marcus asked. The Stones have significant social influence. They care about appearances above all else, Ethan replied. When this is over, they'll distance themselves from her to protect their reputation. We can use that. The day stretched into evening, then night. Team members came and went, bringing reports, updates, and fresh coffee. Through it all, Ethan remained focused, processing information, adjusting strategies, preparing for every contingency. You should get some rest, Marcus said finally, noting the time. We've got the preliminary work in motion. Ethan shook his head. Not yet. There's one more call I need to make. He stepped out onto the office balcony, the city lights spreading below him like a circuit board. The phone rang several times before a gruff voice answered. Mike, it's Ethan Hayes. Remember that security contract we discussed last month? I need to activate it now. Full surveillance package. Top priority. He listened to the response, then added, and Mike, I need absolute discretion on this. The targets are Isabella Stone and Jake Morrison. Ending the call, Ethan looked out over the city. Somewhere out there, Izzy and Jake were celebrating their victory, thinking they'd outsmarted him. Let them celebrate. Let them think they'd won. The real game was just beginning. Chapter 3, The Checkmate Begins. The morning Izzy returned to the penthouse, Ethan was ready. He stood in the marble-floored foyer, Amelia Reyes at his side, watching through the security feed as the private elevator ascended. The boxes containing Izzy's belongings were neatly stacked and labeled, a silent statement of finality. "Remember," Amelia murmured, adjusting her designer's suit, "let me do most of the talking. We want them off balance." Ethan nodded, his expression neutral. The past week had been productive. Their investigation had uncovered more than he'd expected about both Izzy and Jake. Each piece of information was a weapon, carefully prepared and waiting to be deployed. The elevator chimed. Izzy stepped out first, wearing a white designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Jake followed, his cologne announcing his presence before he fully emerged. The sight of them together sparked something cold and deadly in Ethan's chest. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Izzy's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Darling, you didn't have to wait up for me." "Mrs. Hayes." Amelia stepped forward, her tone professionally crisp. "I'm Amelia Reyes, Mr. Hayes' attorney. We have some matters to discuss." Jake moved closer to Izzy, his hand possessively on her lower back. "Whatever you have to say to Izzy, you can say to me." "Mr. Morrison." Amelia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How interesting that you mentioned that. Your presence actually simplifies matters considerably." Izzy's confidence wavered slightly. "What matters? I've already told Ethan I'm divorcing him, and I've secured my future quite nicely. Haven't I, darling?" She directed this last bit at Ethan, clearly expecting him to react. Ethan maintained his silence, watching as Amelia withdrew documents from her briefcase. "About that," the lawyer said, "we should discuss your recent stock transactions." "What's there to discuss?" Jake stepped forward, his Wall Street swagger in full display. The shares were Izzy's to sell. The transaction was completely legal. "Was it?" Amelia raised an eyebrow, extending a document. "Perhaps you should review Section 7.3 of the shareholders' agreement, particularly the clause regarding first right of refusal." Izzy snatched the paper, her manicured nails crinkling the edges as her eyes scanned the text. Her face paled. This can't be right." "Oh, but it is," Amelia continued smoothly. "Any sale of company shares must first be offered to Mr. Hayes at market price. Your attempt to sell to an offshore entity, Green Horizon Investments, I believe, was in direct violation of this agreement." Jake grabbed the document, his previous confidence crumbling as he read. "This is ridiculous. You can't enforce this. The sale has already gone through." "Actually, we can and we have," Amelia replied, producing another set of documents. "The sale has been invalidated. The shares have been reclaimed by Mr. Hayes through his right of first refusal. Here's the documentation of the transfer, along with the court orders supporting our position." Izzy's composure cracked. "What do you mean reclaimed? Those shares were worth millions. I need that money. Perhaps you should have read the agreements more carefully before acting so hastily," Amelia suggested, her tone dripping with professional disdain. Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady and cold. "The boxes contain your personal belongings. My security team will escort you while you verify nothing is missing. After that, you are both to leave the premises immediately." "You can't do this to me," Izzy spat, her carefully maintained facade crumbling completely. "I am your wife." "Soon-to-be ex-wife," Amelia corrected, producing the divorce papers. "These require your immediate attention." Jake paced the foyer like a caged animal, running his hands through his hair. "This isn't over, Hayes. You think you're so clever with your legal tricks." "Mr. Morrison," Amelia cut in sharply, "I strongly advise against making any threats, especially given your interesting history with financial regulations." Jake froze, his face draining of color. Ethan allowed himself a small smile, knowing their investigation had hit pay dirt. The man's past was a minefield of questionable deals and burned investors. "You're bluffing," Jake said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Would you like me to elaborate on the Jensen deal?" Amelia asked innocently. "Or perhaps we should discuss what really happened with Vertex Technologies?" Izzy turned to Jake, confusion marring her features. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing," Jake snapped. "She's trying to manipulate us." Ethan stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "Check the boxes, sign the papers, and get out. Unless you'd prefer we continue this discussion with the SEC present." The threat hung in the air, Izzy moved to the boxes, her hands trembling slightly as she rifled through them. Jake stood awkwardly to the side, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. "Everything appears to be here," Izzy finally said, her voice small. "The divorce papers," Amelia prompted, extending a pen. Izzy glanced at Jake, who avoided her eyes, then at Ethan, who met her gaze with unflinching coldness. She signed, her signature shaky but legible. "One last thing," Amelia said, producing a final document. "This is a non-disclosure agreement regarding your time at Innovate Solutions. Any breach will result in immediate legal action." "You bastard," Izzy whispered, staring at Ethan. "You cold, calculating bastard." "Goodbye, Isabella," Ethan replied simply. He turned to the security team waiting discreetly by the elevator. "Please escort Mrs. Stone and Mr. Morrison out of the building." As they were led away, Izzy turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Ethan. You haven't won." The elevator doors closed on her words. Ethan remained motionless until the security feed showed them leaving the building. "Well," Amelia said, gathering her documents, "that went rather smoothly. Though I suspect they'll try something desperate soon." "Let them," Ethan replied. "Every move they make will only tighten the noose." After Amelia left, Ethan stood alone in his penthouse, surrounded by the evidence of his marriage's dissolution. He pulled out his phone and dialed Marcus. "It's done," he said when his friend answered. "Initiate the next phase. I want to know every move they make, person they contact, plan they try to formulate." "Already on it," Marcus replied. "Our sources say Jake's been making some interesting calls to potential investors." "Good. Let him dig his own grave." Ethan moved to his home office, powering up his computer. "Have our PR team ready. When this story breaks, I want to control the narrative completely." The city lights spread out before him as night fell, a testament to the power and influence he'd built. Izzy had thought him weak, too absorbed in his work to notice her betrayal. She'd thought his dedication to building something meaningful was a weakness to be exploited. She would learn just how wrong she was. Chapter 4. The First Domino Falls. Marcus sat in his office at Innovate Solutions, reviewing the latest surveillance reports on his tablet. The monitors around him displayed various data streams, stock prices, social media feeds, news aggregators. His team had established a comprehensive network to track Izzy and Jake's movements. "Sir," his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Hayes is here." Ethan strode in, his presence commanding immediate attention. The past week had transformed him. The calculated businessman had given way to something more dangerous. "What do we have?" Ethan asked, taking a seat across from Marcus. "Jake's been making moves," Marcus replied, pulling up a series of financial transactions on the main screen. "He's trying to salvage his reputation in the venture capital community. Made 3 pitches this week alone, and all rejected. Our contacts made sure of that." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "But that's not the interesting part. Look at this." He brought up another document, a series of text messages between Jake and a rival tech company. He's been trying to shop around some of Innovate's proprietary information. Nothing critical, just what Izzy managed to gather during her time here. Ethan's expression hardened. "Perfect. Have Amelia draft a cease and desist letter. Make it clear that any use of our intellectual property will result in immediate legal action." "Already done. But I think we can use this." Marcus leaned forward. "What if we leak something more substantial? Something that would really get their attention?" Ethan considered this, his mind working through the possibilities. "The global tech merger." "Exactly. We float rumors about a potential merger. Watch them scramble to get back in. Their greed will do our work for us." Ethan stood, moving to the window overlooking the tech district. "Make the calls. Use the business reporters who owe us favors. Keep it vague, just enough to spark interest." "What about the board?" Marcus asked. "They'll ask questions. Tell them it's part of our market strategy. They trust us after the last quarter's performance." The next few days saw their plan unfold. Carefully placed articles began appearing in tech blogs and financial news sites. "Innovate Solutions in talks with major tech giant," read one headline. "Global tech eyeing strategic acquisition," speculated another. The effect was immediate. Jake's phone started ringing nonstop with calls from investors who had previously shunned him. Izzy, monitoring the news from her temporary apartment, felt the first pangs of doubt about her decisions. Ethan watched it all unfold from his command center at Innovate. His team had transformed an entire floor into their operational headquarters, with different departments coordinating their efforts. Legal, PR, intelligence, all working in concert to execute his vision. Mr. Hayes, a young analyst, approached with a tablet. We've detected increased activity in Ms. Stone's financial accounts. She's trying to liquidate some of her personal investments. Let me guess, preparing to buy back in? Ethan's tone was coldly amused. Yes, sir. She's contacted 3 different brokers today alone. Good. Make sure our friends at the SEC are aware of her activities. I want eyes on transactions she makes. Marcus entered, his face animated with fresh news. You won't believe who just called me. Jake himself, trying to feel out who bought Izzy's shares. He was practically begging for information. What did you tell him? Played dumb. Said I'd heard rumors about an offshore buyer, but couldn't confirm anything. Marcus chuckled. He's desperate. Offered to broker a deal with the mystery buyer himself. Ethan's lips curved into a predatory smile. Time to turn up the pressure. Release the next phase of information. Let's see how they handle real desperation. The team moved into action. More detailed merger rumors began circulating, complete with supposed insider quotes and potential valuation figures. The numbers were astronomical, enough to make any investor salivate. Ethan supervised it all, directing his forces like a general commanding troops. Each piece of information was a weapon, each rumor a carefully aimed strike. He'd learned from Izzy's betrayal, understood now how to use people's own greed and ambition against them. His phone buzzed, a message from Amelia. Got something you need to see. Jake's past is more interesting than we thought. Send me the files, he replied. Minutes later, he was reviewing a comprehensive background report. Jake's history of failed ventures was just the beginning. There were harassment complaints, suspicious financial dealings, a pattern of targeting wealthy women and leaving them financially devastated. Sir, another analyst approached. Ms. Stone just tried to access her old company email account. Our security blocked the attempt, but she's getting aggressive. Good. Let her keep trying. Document everything. Ethan turned to Marcus. How's our stock price? Up 12% since the rumors started. The market's buying it completely. Ethan nodded, satisfaction evident in his bearing. He'd built Innovate Solutions from nothing, understanding that information was the most valuable currency in the tech world. Now he was using that same principle to orchestrate his revenge. Mr. Hayes, his assistant interrupted. Your 2 p.m. is here. The tech journalist from Silicon Valley Weekly. Show her in. Ethan straightened his tie, preparing to play his role. The journalist would leave with exactly the story he wanted published. Another piece in his elaborate game. Marcus watched his friend, noting the transformation. The Ethan Hayes who had built Innovate Solutions had been formidable. This new version was something else entirely. A man who had learned that mercy was a weakness he could no longer afford. The game was entering its next phase, and Ethan was several moves ahead. Chapter 5. The Reveal. The conference room at Innovate Solutions hummed with tension as Ethan reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Screens displayed surveillance photos, financial records, and social media feeds, all focused on Izzy and Jake's increasingly desperate activities. They took the bait, Marcus announced, entering with fresh data. Jake just liquidated his remaining investments. He's trying to position himself for what he thinks is the upcoming merger. Ethan examined the financial records. And Izzy called 3 different board members today, trying to leverage old connections. They shut her down, of course, but she's persistent. A knock at the door interrupted them. Amelia entered, her expression suggesting significant news. You're going to want to see this, she said, connecting her laptop to the main display. We found Jake's sealed records from his time in Chicago. The documents appeared on screen. Court records, police reports, and witness statements. Jake's past was a tapestry of fraud and manipulation. He had systematically targeted wealthy women, gained their trust, then stripped them of their assets before moving on to the next victim. He's done this before, Ethan observed, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. Multiple times. 7 that we can confirm, Amelia replied. Most of the cases were settled quietly to avoid publicity. His victims were too embarrassed to pursue criminal charges. Marcus whistled low. Izzy has no idea who she's really involved with, does she? No, Ethan's response was cold. But she will. Make sure these records find their way to the right journalists. I want his pattern exposed. The team worked through the night, preparing their next moves. Financial analysts tracked Jake's desperate attempts to raise capital. PR specialists crafted the narrative that would destroy his reputation. Legal experts prepared the documents that would spring their trap. Morning brought new developments. Ethan's phone lit up with a message from a security team. Izzy had been spotted entering Global Tech's headquarters. She's trying to verify the merger rumors directly, Marcus noted, reviewing the surveillance photos. Getting sloppy. Perfect. Ethan turned to his computer, typing out instructions to his contacts at Global Tech. Let her get just enough information to think she's onto something. Hours later, Izzy sat in her luxury apartment, frustration evident in her movements as she paced the room. Her phone call with Jake had devolved into accusations and blame. You said this would work, she snapped. You promised me we could hurt him, take control of the company. How was I supposed to know about that clause in the shareholder agreement? Jake shot back, his composure cracking. You're the one who was married to him, and you're supposed to be this brilliant financial genius. Now look at us. He's about to make billions from this merger, and we're locked out completely. Their argument was interrupted by a news alert on both their phones. Breaking news. Tech entrepreneur Jake Morrison's history of fraud exposed. The color drained from Jake's face as he read the article. His past victims, his fraudulent schemes, his pattern of exploitation, all laid bare for the world to see. His phone started buzzing with calls from angry investors and reporters. Izzy stared at him, realization dawning. Is this true? Have you done this before? Jake's attempt at denial was cut short by another news alert. This one detailed his previous relationships, complete with statements from women he'd defrauded. The evidence was overwhelming. Izzy, I can explain, he started. Explain what? She cut him off. How you've made a career out of conning women like me. Was it your plan all along? Back at Innovate Solutions, Ethan watched their world unravel through his surveillance feeds. Each revelation was timed perfectly, designed to inflict maximum damage. Sir, an analyst called out, Jake's investors are pulling out. His latest venture is collapsing. And Izzy, she's trying to damage control. Called her family's PR firm, but they're not taking her calls. Ethan nodded, satisfaction evident in his bearing. Release the financial records. Show everyone exactly how they tried to manipulate the market. The next wave of revelations hit like a tsunami. Financial news sites detailed Jake's failed attempts to profit from insider information. Tech blogs exposed Izzy's efforts to sabotage Innovate Solutions. Their reputations, already damaged, began to crumble completely. Amelia entered with updates from their legal team. The SEC is investigating Jake's trading patterns. 3 of his former victims have contacted us, willing to testify about his schemes. Make sure they have everything they need, Ethan instructed. I want him buried under so much legal trouble he'll never recover. Marcus watched his friend, noting the cold satisfaction in his expression. You knew they'd self-destruct like this? People like them always do, Ethan replied. Their type can't help overreaching, trying to grab what isn't theirs. I just had to give them enough rope. The day wore on, bringing more developments. Jake's business partners publicly distanced themselves from him. Izzy's social circle, sensing the shift in power, began sharing stories of her manipulative behavior. Mr. Hayes, his assistant, interrupted. Miss Stone is in the lobby. She's demanding to see you. Ethan checked the security feed. Izzy stood there, her designer outfit and perfect makeup a stark contrast to her desperate expression. Have security escort her out, he instructed. Any communication goes through our lawyers. He turned back to his team, his voice carrying absolute authority. Prepare for the final phase. It's time to end this game. Chapter 6. The trap closes. The announcement came at precisely 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Business channels interrupted their regular programming as Innovate Solutions and Global Tech revealed their merger plans. The numbers were staggering, a deal valued at billions, promising to revolutionize the tech industry. Ethan stood at the podium in Innovate's main conference room, cameras flashing as he addressed the packed room of reporters and investors. His presentation was flawless, each word carefully chosen to maximize impact. This merger represents more than just a business transaction, he stated, his presence commanding attention. It's about innovation, about pushing boundaries, about creating something truly transformative. In her apartment, Izzy watched the broadcast, hands shaking as she calculated the value of the shares she'd sold. The stake she'd given up in her rush for revenge would have been worth hundreds of millions now. Her phone buzzed, another angry call from her father. The Stone's social standing had taken a massive hit from her association with Jake's schemes. Country club memberships were being quietly revoked, charity board positions reconsidered. How could you be so stupid? Richard Stone's voice cracked with fury. Do you have any idea what this has done to our family's reputation? Across town, Jake sat in his lawyer's office, facing an increasingly dire reality. The SEC investigation had uncovered more than just his recent activities. His entire history of financial manipulation was being exposed. They have everything, his lawyer explained, spreading documents across the desk. Your previous schemes, the offshore accounts, the manipulated trading records. They're talking serious prison time. Jake's facade of confidence had crumbled completely. There must be something we can do. I have connections. Your connections are running for cover. Nobody wants to be associated with you now. At Innovate Solutions, Ethan monitored their reactions through his intelligence network. Each piece of information, each revelation, had been orchestrated for maximum effect. The stock's up 40% since the announcement, Marcus reported, tablet in hand. Institutional investors are falling over themselves to get in. The board is ecstatic. Ethan nodded, reviewing the latest reports. And our friends? Jake's assets are frozen pending the SEC investigation. He tried to leave the country last night. We made sure customs was waiting for him at the airport. Is he? Her family's cutting her off completely. The Stones can't afford to be associated with a financial scandal. She's been asked to vacate her apartment. Seems her trust fund payments have stopped. The day progressed, bringing more developments. News channels ran special reports on the merger, interspersed with updates on Jake's growing legal troubles. Financial analysts praised Ethan's strategic genius while dissecting Jake's fraudulent history. Amelia arrived with fresh intelligence. Jake's trying to cut a deal with prosecutors. He's offering to testify about financial crimes, including some interesting details about Izzy's own activities. Make sure the IRS gets copies of everything, Ethan instructed. I want them looking into both of them. The trap had closed perfectly. Jake and Izzy's attempt to hurt him had become the instrument of their own destruction. Their reputations were ruined, their futures destroyed, their relationship crumbling under the weight of mutual recrimination. Late that evening, Ethan sat in his office, reviewing the day's events. A message from his security team alerted him to Izzy's latest desperate move. She tried to reach out to Global Tech's board members, seeking to somehow insert herself into the merger discussions. Sir, his assistant's voice came through the intercom. Final contracts are ready for your review. Ethan smiled, satisfaction evident in his bearing. The merger wasn't just a business triumph. It was the culmination of his revenge. He'd taken their attempt to destroy him and transformed it into his greatest victory. Marcus entered, carrying a bottle of rare scotch. Thought this called for a celebration. Ethan accepted a glass, studying the amber liquid. To consequences, he said, raising his drink. You know they'll try something else, Marcus observed. People like that don't know when to quit. Let them try, Ethan replied, his voice carrying absolute certainty. They're finished in this industry. No one will trust them, work with them, or back them. They thought they could play in my world without understanding the rules. The city spread out below them, lights glittering against the darkness. Somewhere out there, Izzy and Jake were facing the ruins of their lives, understanding too late the price of betrayal. Ethan Hayes had emerged stronger, more powerful, and utterly ruthless. He'd shown the business world what happened to those who dared to cross him. The message was clear. Betrayal carried consequences, and he was the one who determined the cost. Chapter 7. Reaping the Whirlwind. The Global Tech merger had transformed Innovate Solutions into a tech powerhouse. Financial news networks ran constant coverage of what they called the deal of the decade. Ethan's face appeared on business magazine covers, his story of rising from nothing to build an empire captivating readers worldwide. In his expanded office suite at Innovate's headquarters, Ethan reviewed the latest reports with Marcus. The monitors displayed real-time data on their stock performance, market analysis, and surveillance feeds, tracking their former adversaries' declining fortunes. Jake tried to flee to Mexico last night, Marcus announced, pulling up security footage. Our contacts at the airport made sure he didn't make it past customs. The SEC is processing his arrest now. Ethan nodded, satisfaction evident in his bearing. And Izzy, living in a small apartment in her hometown. She tried to get a job at 3 different tech companies this week. They all rejected her within hours of receiving her application. The transformation of Innovate Solutions had been remarkable. The merger had brought not just financial success, but a complete restructuring of the company's power structure. Ethan had rewarded loyalty, promoting those who had stood by him during the crisis while ruthlessly removing anyone who had shown even a hint of wavering. Mr. Hayes, his assistant, interrupted via intercom. The Wall Street Journal is on line 1. They want to do a feature piece on your journey from Montana to Tech Titan. Set up the interview, Ethan replied. Make sure our PR team prepares the right narrative. The story had taken on a life of its own in the media. Ethan Hayes, the self-made billionaire who had overcome betrayal to build something even greater. The public couldn't get enough of it. Marcus pulled up another screen. You should see this. Jake's arrest video is going viral. The footage showed Jake being led away in handcuffs, his designer suit wrinkled, his face contorted with rage and fear. The mighty venture capitalist reduced to a common criminal. His lawyer reached out this morning, Marcus continued. They're hoping for a plea deal. Jake's willing to testify about other financial crimes in exchange for leniency. Let him talk, Ethan said, his voice cold. The more he reveals, the more people he drags down with him, the better. A notification popped up on his tablet. Another article about Izzy had been published. She'd been spotted waiting tables at a local diner, a far cry from her former life of luxury. The photos showed her in a generic uniform, serving coffee to uncaring customers who had no idea they were being served by a woman who had once moved in the highest circles of society. Sir, another assistant entered with fresh reports. The Tech Incubator project is ready for your review. We've identified 20 promising startups for the first round of funding. This was Ethan's latest initiative, identifying and supporting new tech entrepreneurs who showed real promise. He'd learned valuable lessons about loyalty and betrayal, and he was determined to create a network of companies bound by shared values and mutual success. What's the vetting process? He asked, examining the profiles. Extensive background checks, psychological evaluations, and detailed analysis of their business practices. We're not just investing in their ideas. We're investing in their character. Ethan approved. The tech world was full of opportunists like Jake, looking for quick profits without understanding the value of building something real. His incubator would be different. A message from Amelia appeared on his screen. She'd been monitoring the legal fallout from their operation, making sure both Jake and Izzy faced the full consequences of their actions. Just received confirmation, she wrote. The IRS is opening a full investigation into Izzy's finances. They're particularly interested in those undeclared offshore accounts we discovered. The pieces were falling into place perfectly. Jake faced prison time for his financial crimes. Izzy's reputation was destroyed, her social standing obliterated. Her family had cut all ties, more concerned with protecting their own status than supporting their disgraced daughter. Mr. Hayes, his assistant called again. The young engineer you mentioned is here for her interview. Ah yes, Sarah Chun, a brilliant programmer he'd discovered through his incubator program. She reminded him of himself at that age, driven, talented, and uncompromising in her standards. Send her in. Sarah entered, her excitement barely contained. Mr. Hayes, thank you for meeting with me. Your story, it's inspired so many of us in the tech community. Ethan gestured for her to sit. Tell me about your project. As she explained her innovative approach to AI security protocols, Ethan saw the future taking shape. This was how he would build his legacy, not just through personal success, but by creating opportunities for others who shared his vision and values. The day proceeded with a steady stream of meetings, decisions, and strategic planning. Ethan moved through it all with calculated precision, each action furthering his goals. Late that evening, Marcus brought one final update. Izzy tried to contact you again. Through her mother this time. Standard response. Ethan replied without looking up from his work. All communication was to go through their lawyers. He had no interest in her attempts at reconciliation or appeals for mercy. The city lights spread out before him as night fell. He'd built this, all of it, through determination and an unwavering commitment to his goals. Those who had tried to take it from him had learned a harsh lesson about the price of betrayal. Chapter 8. The Final Move. Richard Stone's hands trembled as he entered Innovate Solutions headquarters. The former lawyer, once so proud and condescending, now moved with the uncertain steps of a man who had lost everything. The security team escorted him to the executive floor, where Ethan waited in his conference room. The space spoke of power and success, everything the Stones had lost in the wake of their daughter's disgrace. Richard, Ethan greeted him without warmth. Sit. Carol Stone, hovering behind her husband, had lost her social butterfly confidence. Her designer clothes, once so pristine, showed signs of wear. The country club set had abandoned them completely. Ethan, please, Richard began, his voice rough. We never meant. Save it. Ethan cut him off, sliding a document across the table. This is the deed to your house. As you can see, I now own it. The color drained from Richard's face as he read. Through a series of strategic financial moves, Ethan had acquired their mortgage and all their outstanding debts. We'll be out by, Richard started. That's not why you're here. Ethan's voice was steel. I want information. Everything you know about Izzy's financial activities during her time with your family's company. Understanding dawned in Richard's eyes. You want me to betray my own daughter? She betrayed herself, Ethan replied coldly. I'm offering you a choice. Tell me everything, and you keep your house. Refuse, and I'll begin foreclosure proceedings tomorrow. Carol made a small, broken sound. Their house was all they had left of their former life. Richard's resistance crumbled. She had access to the company accounts. Small amounts at first, nothing noticeable. Then larger sums. Details, Ethan demanded. Dates, amounts, methods. For the next hour, Richard laid bare his daughter's history of financial manipulation. How she'd used her position in the family business to siphon funds. How she'd falsified tax records. How she'd stolen from clients while hiding behind her family's reputation. Ethan recorded everything, each revelation another nail in Izzy's coffin. When Richard finally fell silent, tears streaked Carol's carefully maintained makeup. The deed will be transferred back to you tomorrow, Ethan informed them. But understand this. If any of this conversation leaves this room, if you warn Izzy in any way, the deal is void. You're going to destroy her completely, Carol whispered. No, Ethan corrected her. She destroyed herself. I'm simply ensuring she faces the consequences. After they left, Ethan compiled the information into a detailed report. One copy went to the IRS, another to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, and a third to the state prosecutor's office. It's done, he informed Marcus via phone. Make sure our media contacts get the anonymous tip about the investigation. I want this to be public. The next day, the story broke across multiple news outlets. Socialite under investigation for major financial fraud. Izzy's face appeared in newspapers and on news websites, her past glamour contrasting sharply with the allegations against her. In her small hometown apartment, Izzy watched her world crumble further. Her phone rang constantly. Reporters seeking comments, former friends distancing themselves, investigators demanding answers. She tried calling her parents, but their numbers had been disconnected. She was truly alone now, facing the full weight of her crimes. Back at Innovate, Ethan monitored the fallout. The investigation would be thorough and merciless. He made sure of that. The prosecution has everything they need, Amelia reported. Between Jake's testimony and the evidence from her father, she's looking at serious prison time. Ethan nodded, satisfaction evident in his bearing. Make sure nothing gets overlooked. I want every charge, violation documented and prosecuted. The machinery of justice he'd set in motion would grind slowly but inexorably. Izzy's fate was sealed, not by his actions, but by her own choices. His phone buzzed, another message from Izzy begging for mercy. He deleted it without reading fully. She had shown him no mercy when she'd tried to destroy everything he'd built. Now she would learn that actions had consequences. Chapter 9. The Architect's Legacy. 5 years passed. Innovate Solutions had grown into a global tech empire, with Ethan Hayes recognized as one of the most influential figures in the industry. His tech incubator program had launched dozens of successful startups, creating a network of loyal companies that shared his vision and values. In his expanded office suite, now occupying the top floor of Innovate's new headquarters tower, Ethan reviewed the latest project proposals with his executive team. The room hummed with energy as brilliant minds discussed cutting-edge innovations. The AI integration is exceeding all projections, Sarachin reported. She had risen quickly through the ranks, her talent and dedication making her one of his most trusted executives. We're years ahead of our competitors. Ethan nodded approvingly. He built this team carefully, choosing people who understood the value of loyalty and shared his commitment to excellence. A news alert appeared on his tablet. Jake had been denied parole again. The former venture capitalist remained in prison, his attempts to rebuild his reputation thwarted at every turn. Another notification showed a different story. Izzy had completed her first year of a 5-year sentence for financial fraud. The photos showed her in prison uniform, all traces of her former glamour stripped away. He felt nothing looking at these updates. They were simply confirmation that justice had been served. Marcus entered with fresh reports. The new security protocols are ready for implementation. No one will ever be able to attempt what they did again. Ethan had used the lessons from his past to build something stronger. His company was now a fortress, protected by layers of legal and technological safeguards. Sir, his assistant called, the tech conference organizers are on line 1. They want to confirm your keynote speech. He would tell his story, not as a victim of betrayal, but as someone who had turned adversity into triumph. Young entrepreneurs needed to understand the importance of protecting what they built. The day of the conference arrived, and Ethan took the stage before a packed auditorium. Thousands of aspiring tech leaders hung on his words as he described his journey from Montana to Tech Titan. Success isn't just about innovation, he told them. It's about understanding human nature, about knowing who to trust and how to protect what you've built. In the audience, he saw hungry minds absorbing his message. They needed to understand that the tech world wasn't just about coding and algorithms. It was about power, strategy, and the willingness to be ruthless when necessary. After his speech, a young female engineer approached him, her eyes bright with admiration. "Mr. Hayes, your story, it's incredible. You showed us that we don't have to be victims, that we can fight back and win." He saw in her the same fire he'd had at her age, the same determination to succeed despite obstacles. "Remember," he told her, "in this industry, your ideas are your life. Protect them. Trust must be earned, not given." Back in his office, Ethan stood looking out at the city he'd conquered. He thought about Izzy and Jake, their failed attempt to destroy him, and how he'd turned their betrayal into the foundation of something greater. The world had learned a valuable lesson from their downfall. Betrayal carried a price, and Ethan Hayes would always collect in full. His phone buzzed, another ambitious startup seeking his mentorship. Life moved forward, and he had an empire to build. His new wife, Diana, a brilliant neuroscientist who had never asked him to compromise his principles, sent him a message about dinner. She understood him, supported his vision without trying to change him. Ethan Hayes had won not just the battle, but the war. He'd shown the world what happened to those who dared to cross him, and in doing so, he'd built a legacy that would endure. The young engineer's words echoed in his mind. He had indeed paved the way, showing others how to protect themselves, how to fight back, how to win. This was his true victory, not just personal success, but creating a model for others to follow. A blueprint for turning betrayal into triumph. The architect had built his masterpiece, and it would stand as a testament to his vision and his ruthless determination to succeed at any cost. Epilogue. A decade later, the glass elevator glided smoothly up the side of the Innovate Solutions global headquarters, a 100-story monument to technological achievement that dominated the city skyline. Inside, Marcus Chun adjusted his tie, tablet in hand, preparing for the morning briefing with Ethan. 10 years had transformed their company from a successful tech firm into a global powerhouse that shaped the future of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and digital infrastructure. Marcus, now the company's president, still marveled at how that pivotal betrayal had sparked such monumental change. The elevator opened directly into the executive floor's security checkpoint. Advanced biometric scanners, their own technology, verified his identity before granting access. The bitter lessons of the past had created one of the most secure corporate environments in the world. "Good morning, Mr. Chun." Sarah Chin, no relation, greeted him. The former young engineer had risen to become their chief technology officer, her brilliant innovations making her one of the most respected figures in the tech world. Mr. Hayes is waiting in the main conference room. Ethan Hayes, at 55, had aged like fine whiskey. His hair showed distinguished streaks of gray, but his eyes retained their penetrating intensity. He stood at the head of the conference table, reviewing holographic projections of their latest project metrics. "Marcus," he acknowledged his old friend. "The acquisition reports?" "Finalized this morning," Marcus replied, sharing the data to the room's display system. "Global tech was just the beginning. With this merger, we'll control 60% of the world's AI infrastructure." The years had proven Ethan's vision prophetic. While other tech giants focused on consumer products, he had built the foundational systems that powered the digital age. Their technology was everywhere, invisible but essential, like electricity or gravity. "Diana's research team has made another breakthrough," Ethan mentioned, referring to his wife of 8 years. Dr. Diana Hayes had revolutionized the field of neural interface technology, creating direct connections between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. Their partnership, both personal and professional, had pushed the boundaries of what technology could achieve. "How's Alexandra?" Marcus asked, referring to Ethan's 6-year-old daughter. The child was already showing signs of her parents' brilliant minds, combining her father's focused determination with her mother's scientific curiosity. "Started coding her own games last week," Ethan replied, a rare smile softening his features. Diana had to upgrade her tablet's security protocols to keep her from hacking it. The conversation shifted to business as more executives joined them. Their inner circle had expanded but remained fiercely loyal, each member carefully chosen and tested over years of service. "Update on our old friends?" Marcus asked quietly during a break. Ethan pulled up a secure file. Jake Morrison remained in federal prison, his repeated parole attempts denied. His testimony had helped convict dozens of other financial criminals, but had earned him no leniency. His reputation as a fraudster had become a cautionary tale taught in business schools. Isabella "Izzy" Stone had served her 5-year sentence and now lived in obscurity in a small Midwest town. Their surveillance showed her working as a bookkeeper at a local construction company, a mundane fate for someone who had once moved in elite circles. Her attempts to rebuild her life in larger cities had been quietly thwarted, Ethan's influence ensuring she remained in professional exile. The Stone family had never recovered their social status. Richard and Carol had kept their house as promised, but lived as outcasts from their former society. Their complicity in their daughter's downfall had made them pariahs among their peers. "Mr. Hayes," his assistant interrupted, "the Prime Minister of Japan is on the secure line. It's about the quantum computing initiative." Ethan nodded, moving to his private office. World leaders now sought his counsel, recognizing that true power in the modern age lay in controlling digital infrastructure. Later that afternoon, Diana joined him for lunch in their private dining room. Her neuroscience background had given their company an edge in developing brain-computer interfaces, creating technology that seemed like science fiction a decade ago. "The neural mapping project is exceeding expectations," she reported, her brilliant mind already working through new possibilities. "We're seeing synaptic response patterns we never imagined." Their relationship was a perfect synthesis of intellect and ambition. Diana had known about Izzy, had understood the lessons Ethan had learned from that betrayal. She respected his boundaries, matched his drive, and shared his vision of technological evolution. In his private moments, Ethan sometimes reflected on how that betrayal had shaped his empire. His response to Izzy and Jake's scheme had set him on a path to unprecedented success. The ruthless efficiency he developed, the absolute control he demanded, the unwavering focus on security and loyalty, all had emerged from that crucible of betrayal. The afternoon brought a meeting with their charitable foundations board. The Hayes Innovation Fund had become a major force in technical education, identifying promising students from underprivileged backgrounds. Ethan had not forgotten his own roots in Montana, though his response to hardship had been very different from Izzy's reaction to privilege. The latest batch of scholarships is ready for your review, Sarah reported. She had taken a personal interest in mentoring young engineers, remembering how Ethan's support had launched her own career. We've found some exceptional candidates. The foundation served multiple purposes. It created goodwill, developed future talent, and extended their influence into academia. More importantly, it shaped the next generation of tech leaders according to their principles. As evening approached, Marcus joined Ethan in his office for their traditional end-of-day discussion. Their friendship had deepened over the years, tempered by shared battles and victories. "Remember when we thought the global tech merger was big?" Marcus mused, pouring their usual scotch. "Now we're reshaping the entire digital landscape." "We understood something others didn't," Ethan replied. "Technology isn't just about innovation. It's about control, about building systems that can't be compromised by human weakness." Their security protocols had become legendary in the tech world. No one entered their inner circle without extensive vetting. Trust was earned through years of proven loyalty, not granted through titles or agreements. The sun set over the city they'd come to dominate. Ethan's influence extended far beyond the corporate world now. Politicians sought his support, universities courted his donations, and entrepreneurs studied his methods. Diana called, reminding him of Alexandra's science project presentation that evening. For all his power and control, Ethan had discovered that fatherhood had opened new perspectives. Alexandra would inherit not just his wealth, but his wisdom, understanding both the opportunities and dangers that came with power. Before leaving, he checked one final report, a comprehensive surveillance update on all potential threats to their empire. Old habits died hard, and he had learned never to become complacent. The report included a small note about Izzy. She had recently attempted to write a memoir, seeking to tell her side of the story. A quiet word to publishers had ensured the manuscript would never see print. Her voice, like her ambitions, would remain silenced. Jake had made news again, his latest appeal denied. Prison had aged him harshly, his former charm replaced by bitter desperation. His attempts to maintain connections in the business world had been systematically severed, his name toxic to anyone seeking success. Ethan felt no satisfaction or remorse about their fates. They were simply data points now, problems that had been solved, threats that had been neutralized. Their betrayal had taught him valuable lessons about power and control, lessons he'd used to build something far greater than they could have imagined. The drive home took him past neighborhoods where augmented reality billboards displayed Innovate Solutions' latest breakthroughs. Their technology had become part of society's fabric, essential to modern life. The digital age he controlled had surpassed anything he'd dreamed of during those early battles. Diana met him at their penthouse door, her mind already racing with new ideas for neural interface applications. Alexandra ran to greet him, her tablet displaying the code she'd written that day. They were his true legacy now, brilliant minds that would carry his vision forward. Over dinner, they discussed the future. Alexandra's questions about artificial intelligence showed an understanding beyond her years. Diana's insights into consciousness and computation sparked new possibilities for their research. Later, in his home office, Ethan reviewed the next day's agenda. Their global expansion continued, with new acquisitions and innovations extending their reach. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy him had instead become the foundation of an empire. Marcus called with a final update. Their latest AI security system had detected and neutralized a sophisticated cyber attack, protecting not just their corporate data, but the global digital infrastructure they controlled. The attackers would never know how thoroughly their attempt had been thwarted. Looking out over the city, Ethan reflected on the decade since his transformation. He had built something unprecedented, not just a tech company, but a system of power and control that shaped the modern world. His response to betrayal had created a new paradigm of corporate dominance. Diana joined him, her presence a reminder that trust, properly earned and verified, could coexist with power. Their partnership had proven that relationships could strengthen rather than weaken when built on mutual respect and shared vision. The night deepened, but Innovate Solutions never slept. Their systems ran the digital networks that connected continents, processed financial transactions, and powered the artificial intelligence that increasingly governed daily life. From that long-ago betrayal, Ethan Hayes had architected not just his revenge, but a new world order. He had proven that true power came not from destroying enemies, but from building systems they could never penetrate or compromise. The architect had become the master builder, and his creation would endure long after the names Izzy and Jake had been forgotten by all but a few. In the end, their betrayal had given him something far more valuable than revenge. It had shown him how to build an empire